Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? So I think I'm audible, right? Yeah. So thank you, Melissa and Ajita and Suhani, of course, for the amazing panel discussion. I hope each and every one of you had a lot of insights and a lot to learn from them. So I'm Karthik. I'm the co-founder of Saral Designs, and very often you'll find me innovating or tinkering with the product or the machine that we have. So today I'll be covering a bit about the current Indian feminine hygiene market and what are the trends and what are the innovations that we are seeing in this industry. I hope you guys have a lot of good information to take away from this session. So first, let's begin with India. Uh, this is a very powerful image in itself. Uh, on the left side, you see a developed city, one as good as Mumbai, where you have very good infrastructure like the world's best schools, the sanitation systems are really good. There is adequate supply of water, electricity, so everything that you would need to live a good quality life, right? On the other side, uh, there's also a big population of India which is living in villages, which actually lack supply of water. They would have electricity for a few hours, or maybe not even that. The education quality is poor. So obviously, the people living in these areas, they are leading a very different life, right? We can just imagine how different it would be. Look at another image. On the right hand side, you see that these are the leaders of the biggest global companies, and they're all Indians. On the other hand, we also see that many people have poor access to education, and education is also a very important part when it comes to awareness about menstrual hygiene. So this is also a big contrast that we see in the Indian population. Here you can see that on one hand the amazing food that is available in the five-star restaurants. Just one of these meal is going to be enough to feed a family for almost. That is also a very contrasting image there. Again, I'm repeating, but people are living very different lives in these areas, and their requirements even from the menstrual hygiene perspective is hence very different. On a lighter note, even the fashion sense of people is very different. You can see from the image, but on a serious note, it's also important to know that there are a lot of people who value their traditions very strong, and also there are people who are following the latest trends and becoming day by day more modern in their lifestyle. Essentially, I think it's important to understand for us that India is very big and very diverse. We have so many different cultures, so many different languages. It's important to be aware that this is what we are dealing with. The deeper we try to look at it, the more complex. I would just like to state one example that we had come across. There is a area called Latur in Maharashtra where we are doing awareness campaigns. In this area, we were looking at creating a Sangini model and distributing pads to the villages. These villages have about 500 to 1,000 people living in them. We had seen that in one of the villages, more women were using pads compared to other, and it was really not clear to us that what is the reason for the difference between these two villages, because they were very similar in terms of population, the number of girls there, the schools, or the expendable income that they had. It was very similar. So after looking at it a little more deeply, we realized that one of the villages was about 4 to 5 kilometers away from a highway, and the other was about 20 kilometers away from a highway. Now, it is very important to know that what is the reason why that the trends in one village to other can also vary so much. There might be different factors in every different village. For example, in a few villages, you might find that the schools don't have toilets right? So where would the girls change the pads? Or some places the schools have toilets, but they don't have doors or they're open. So even the requirements in those places changes. So I think we all need to understand that there is no one solution that's going to solve all the problems. This is a very big and common mistake that is made by a lot of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs which are working at different scale. Like if we look at local entrepreneurs who's working at a village level, or someone who has just bought a very big production machine, maybe a 5 crore sanitary napkin making machine. The mistake that a lot of people here make is that they try to give the same solution for each and every consumer, but that might not actually be the answer to it. We actually have to deep dive and find what the consumer actually needs, and then tweak our product in such a way that it satisfies their needs. So one of the trends that we see in industry is that a lot of people start making sanitary napkins, and then they distribute in one area. They find that people are not buying again, so they go to a new area and give the same solution again. And again, if they don't find success, they move to a third area. So that is a big trend that is observed by a lot of local manufacturers. So what we are kind of saying is that it's important to find out why the women in the area that we have tried to supply are not liking your product, and try to solve that problem instead of just moving from one area to another, because that is getting repeat orders is what is going to sustain your enterprise, whether it's a small local enterprise or you're a slightly bigger company. I think it's the same strategy, that the area where you're trying to focus, it's important to stick to that area and find the solution that is going to be suitable to the people there, right? We need to accept that it's a very complex country, India, and we need to be sure of what is going to be our strategy and stick to it. Stick to the locality that we want to distribute our pads to, and work on the product, talk to people there, so that you find the right solution for the people there. In the end, I'd just like to say that there is a market for every type of entrepreneur in India, whether you're doing it at a village level or at a district level or at a state level. It doesn't matter. There is a market for each and every type of entrepreneur, and there are tremendous amount of opportunities even in this space for anyone to start a new company. Moving on, let's look at how people's income have been increasing. So you can see in this graph, this is in 2005, people having less than $4,000 is about 70% of people had that income. It's now moving. You see that there are people who are having very poor income have come to a lower middle class from the lower category, right? And so you see that the lower middle class and the upper middle class are increasing. From 7%, 21% have now moved to a category of being calling themselves as upper middle class. And looking at the current GDP, of course, just the COVID-19 is going to be a blip, and we hope that everything is going to come back on track very soon. But we are kind of projecting that within the next decade, about 44% of the population is going to be in the upper middle class category. And even the lower middle class is going to be 34%. So together, the middle class is going to be 80% of our population, right? So from 30% in 2005 to 80%. Now this is a big change that we are. So the core consumer of sanitary napkins, essentially as a product, is the middle income sector, and obviously the high income segment as well. But we are seeing that this is growing day by day in India. So the growing lower middle class is also very significant. So currently the women in rural and tier 3 and tier 4 areas who are not using pads, more and more they get exposure and awareness about menstrual hygiene, we are expecting they would also start using napkins. Urban population is going to become 40%. This is also a big trend, right? Because more and more people will have access to good quality infrastructure, to sanitation, good education. So all these things are going to improve. And so we'd find that more people will start using pads. So the rural per capita consumption is going to increase by 4 times. Now this, what does this mean? If people have more income to spend, obviously the usage of hygiene products is also going to increase. And obviously there is also going to be a reduction in poverty, looking at the current trends. Let us also look at the age distribution. Right now, less than 25 years people, so we have about 45% of our total population who is less than 25. So what does this mean? This means that in the next decade, we will have a lot of these people who will be joining the working force. And with a growing working force, we know that people will have a higher purchasing power and they will be able to spend on consumer goods. So with this also indicates that the consumption of consumer goods, including sanitary napkins and other menstrual hygiene products, is going to increase. Right? Indians will spend more both on quality as well as quantity of pads. So for example, if women say in rural India are using maybe 3 to 4 pads in a cycle, they would, with a higher purchasing power, they will start using more number of pads as per the recommended guidelines. And also they will demand a good, better quality sanitary napkins and not just cut down costs for the quality purpose. So use of new age technologies, a lot of people have access to mobile phones and a lot of people are online. So these things will also increase the consumption of menstrual hygiene products. One more thing to note here is that since India is also very big, uh, we also need to be aware of each and every state and districts within the state are also very different, right? Uh, the states that are highlighted in red are the states which are performing very well, and the orange ones are slowly emerging states. It is important for us to also realize that in the space that we want to work, uh, what kind of area are we set up in, be the product more suitable to the demographic that we are catering to. There is obviously a disparity in growth and in the product as well. Even when we are looking within a state, whether it's an urban developed city or it's a rural area, there is a disparity in both these areas. So we need to plan better. Government has also come up with 101 aspirational districts and smart cities, and these can actually unlock potential in several tier 2 and tier 3 towns. So you'd find a lot of schemes that are available if you want to start a manufacturing setup in these districts. So this is something that I think from the audience who is looking to start a new enterprise, this is something that they can check out if the district that they want to work is one of the aspirational districts that's set by the government. So we also feel that there is a big disruption that is coming in the Indian feminine hygiene industry, and there are several reasons for that. The first one is the telecom, the access to mobile. India is ranked second in terms of telecom subscriptions, and internet is a very big deal. And it's not that this is limited to the urban population. Even the rural population is now present on the digital media. They are increasing day by day. So, it's very important that we also make use of these technologies well. The awareness level of people is increasing because they are able to access good quality information rather more easily with the help of their mobile devices. So yeah, currently 500 million people in India are having access to technology, and within the next decade, it's going to double to a billion people, right? So you can imagine that almost 80% of our country would have access to phone and digital, and this is a big reason for disruption, because the awareness about hygiene is also going to increase, and mobile phones will play a very key role in bringing this awareness about as well. Second big disruption is because of the startups like us and the social enterprises like us. We also have a very pivotal role in creating this in the hygiene scenario. There are many ways and where organizations, small organizations like us, create an impact. First is creating awareness. Like I said, India is a very diverse country where there are many linguistic barriers, cultural barriers. So it's important that awareness is created to each and everyone in India, and so it's not going to be a one-person job uh, or just one organization can be able to drive this change. We need to. Sometimes it's also very important that point-to-point contact is done. We have a dialogue with women, a very personal dialogue to create this awareness. So this is something that each and every one of us has a very important role to play in. The second thing is innovating in product. So a sanitary napkin is a very new product in terms that it's just about 70-80 years since people globally are using sanitary napkins. So it's a very new product. But how much have we innovated or modified the product to suit our Indian consumers is a very different question. We all know that affordability is a key criteria. So we need to be constantly innovating on the product to make it more affordable for them. We also need to innovate in distribution models, because a lot of places in India are not easily accessible. So how can we make the product available even at a village level at a low cost is going to be very important to create disruption. One more aspect is also sustainable products. You would find that a lot of villages, they don't have an infrastructure to collect menstrual hygiene waste. So can we look at sustainable products, or can we collect these products and ensure that they are being disposed properly? So in India, 85% of the market is currently owned by MNCs such as P&G, Johnson and Johnson, and Unilever. It was very similar in China in the early 90s, where about more than 95% of the market was owned by big MNCs. And in the next decade is something that we are also expecting that will happen. Next decade, there were thousands of local manufacturers who came in China, and they were constantly innovating their product and to make it more suitable to the consumers there. So within the next decade, this percentage has changed drastically. Now, more than 70% of the market in China is owned by local manufacturers, right? So that is a big change that happened within a decade in China, and we feel that we are also ready for such a big change. And there are some key strengths that we have as local manufacturers, which we have to realize, and we have to strategize our business based on these things. We know that we are closer to the end users, and that is a very good strength that we have. It's very important that we listen to what our consumers are telling, what their demands are from the product. It's us who can create a good awareness and distribution model to reach out to people who currently don't have access to pads. So a lot of the disruption in the hygiene industry is also up to startups and social enterprises like a lot of us here. There's also a big change that has happened regarding the conversation about menstrual hygiene and in mainstream media. The impact of a movie like Batman has been very, very immense. A lot of people are looking to start up enterprises just after seeing a movie like a lot of people didn't know that such a issue existed in our community, but they are more aware after such mainstream media. There are also many more work that is being done, and we just had Melissa, who had come up with Period End of Sentence, which was an Oscar-winning documentary. Other movies like Fullu, which was also a local movie that has come, and these are talking about menstruation as the main subject of. So this is the first time that something like this is happening. Previously, even till in early 2000s, we would find that a lot of advertisements, although they would be advertising menstrual hygiene product, but you would not, if you are not aware about it, you would not understand what if it is anything related to periods at all, right? So now, but these days we are finding that even in advertisements, people are talking about periods openly. They are not scared about these taboo topics related to periods. In fact, it's interesting to know that in few years, even in some of the developed countries, using words such as periods in advertisements was something that was looked down upon. So advertisements had to be cancelled because they were talking about periods in their advertisements. So yeah, obviously the conversation around periods is increasing, and doing it on mainstream media is making everyone more comfortable to talk about this subject. And so it's going to help in creating a disruption and people accepting menstrual hygiene as a regular activity and just get more aware about it. Right. So now let's move to different kind of products that are being used in India, and we'll also talk about some of the trends that we are seeing here. First one is something that you would find like this. These are old cloths or rags that are used by a lot of women still in India. Um, Now, these are generally old, maybe saris or bed sheet, which are in use, that are converted into. The thing is that these cloth, after use, they have to be washed. They have to be washed well, and they have to be dried in the sun, so that they are sanitized and safe to use again. Uh, this is the main challenge, that a lot of people in India, they don't have access to a safe place to dry these clothes, and hence a lot of women are suffering from. This is a serious concern. It's not that these are not good as products, but there is a certain way to use them, which we find is tough to follow. So a lot of organizations who are working in this space, even if women cannot afford the commercial pads, there's a lot of awareness that needs to be created, and we need to be very strong about creating this awareness that these cloths have to be washed well and dried well, and only then it's a safe product to use. So even if we are looking at women who cannot use sanitary napkins, and because maybe they can't afford them, but it becomes very important for us to at least educate them about how to use the cloth pads. Also, education about pads is also important, because they should also have the knowledge that they have another option to choose from. Maybe they just need it for a day while they are going out, maybe to attend a wedding or just traveling to some other place. And they, but do they have awareness about other products like a pad, and do they have access? So when we are trying to educate these women, we also have to educate about what are the options that these women have in terms of the menstrual hygiene products that they can choose from. Cloth is perfectly safe as long as it is washed and dried properly. So there are a few organizations which have innovated on these cloth pads. They have made these cloth pads in such a way that they are a little bit more comfortable to use. Sometimes they would have a sheet at the bottom, which prevent leakages from the bottom, so it can avoid. And they have these cloth pads generally are made up of cloth which can be folded and dried in the sun easily. So they come in different shape and form. So this is a slight improvement over the old made up by the end user, in the sense that it gives a little bit more of comfort and convenience compared to. But again, these also require to be washed and dried well. Then again, we need to look at the area that we are trying to create an impact. If we are going to go to a village, for example, where there is scarcity of water, or the supply of water is very poor, then it might mean that women might not have enough water to clean their pads properly. So it is something that we need to be aware about, that these pads have to be washed, they have to be dried well. So while we are trying to market these products, this is something that we have to be mindful about as well. The of pads is something that looks like this. This is the most basic version of a pad, where you have just 3 layers. One is the bottom barrier sheet, which prevents leakage. Then you have the absorbent, which is generally made up of wood pulp, and the top sheet is generally a non-woven polypropylene, which is referred as cotton because it feels like cotton, but these are traditionally plastic, even the top sheet. Now, these are the lowest cost pads that are available to women. Since these pads don't have wings, it might cause a bit of a discomfort while the woman is walking. The pad might tend to move a little bit while walking, and that might. So we are seeing that even in rural India, most of the people have moved ahead from this product, and they are preferring sanitary napkins to have wings. This is what we are seeing. Okay, this is the least cost pad that is available. So I'll move on to the next one, which is fluff pads with wings. It is something that looks like this. And even in the fluff pads, there are two variants. One of the fluff pad is one which has the super absorbent gel in it. The other is without it. In the experience of a pad with sap and without sap is also very different. The sap, which is a super absorbent polymer, absorbs all the menstrual blood and it turns into a gel form. So hence the pad as such remains very dry, right? So it is more comfortable and it can help in preventing rashes. If you apply some weight on the pad, if you're sitting on the pad, you won't find that blood is again leaking from the pad or coming out. So in that way, the performance of a fluff pad with gel is slightly better than the pad without sap. Again, after these pads are slightly more expensive than the pads without wings, but these are again the most predominantly used pads in the rural market. We are seeing is the ultra-thin pads is as of today the most desirable product, and there are several reasons for it. One is the discreetness. Like women don't want other people around them to know that they are using a pad, and ultra-thin pads offers that kind of discreetness. It gives a lot of comfort and convenience, and the hygienic standards of the products are obviously very good. Even in ultra thin pads, there are many different variants available, from a standard quality ultra thin to a very premium quality ultra thin pad. So anything from maybe 6 rupees to 15 or 20 rupees per pad is available in the market. And there's a lot of innovation that is going on this product itself. So this is also the highest growing segment of all the other pads. The market that is there, we don't have as much growth year on year as we are seeing in ultra thin pad, owing to its comfort and convenience. Also, a lot of big companies are working towards making these pads a little bit more friendly for the environment. To the environment impact of the pads very soon, but there's a lot of effort being put globally uh, as to how can we dispose these pads in a safe manner, or how can we make environmentally friendly products. Menstrual cup is also a very modern product. Typically, it's the urban end user who is the first user for these kind of products. Now, both the menstrual cup and tampons are products which have to be inserted inside a vagina. So now that is a big barrier, even for a lot of urban women to shift to a product like this. And hence we are seeing that as of today, it's a very small market in India. Obviously, as the urban consumer gets more and more aware and understands the benefits of these products, we will also see an increase of in the market of these kind of products as well. But as of today, we are seeing that the highest growing segment in India is the ultra thin pads, and there is a lot of innovation in the product also that is kind of required for the market today. So now let's move on to the subject that is very important for all of us today, and that is what to do with the sanitary napkin waste that is generated. Assuming that 35% of the 350 million menstruating women use pads, with about 200 tons of plastic waste is generated every day. Isn't that a very big quantity? It is, but we also need to know it's 1% of all the plastic waste that is generated. The biggest contributor of plastic waste is the packaging industry, the water bottles that we have, the biscuit and the chips packet that we have. These contribute a major chunk of the plastic waste. But that does not mean that we can ignore that sanitary pad is creating a plastic pollution issue, and it is something that the entire industry is working on this issue. So as of today, what is the government saying on this? The government has given different guidelines on how we should dispose sanitary napkin. Obviously, environmentally friendly solution cannot be created overnight. It's going to be a process. So during this process, we need to be aware of how we have to dispose these products. So in rural areas, for the fluff pads without sap, a low-cost incinerator is recommended by the government. So in the incinerator, we just put the pad and it burns. So in a low-cost incinerator, you would have a very simple incinerator which would burn the pad at a little bit lower temperature. That would be around 400 to 500 degrees centigrade. But the government has said that in a rural setup and for fluff pads which do not have sap, this is still safe enough incinerator to use. However, if we are using pads with sap, we need to use an electric incinerator and especially with filters in them, because the pollutants that can come out of these pads can be harmful for the environment. So it is recommended to use electric incinerators, which are also incinerating at the recommended temperature. So typically also in a low-cost incinerator, you might find that they are not electrically operated. They might be like in a matka form where you kind of burn wood or charcoal to burn away these pads. So an electric incinerator is a slightly more sophisticated incinerator than a low-cost incinerator. In an urban setup, it is recommended that all the pads be collected and they be incinerated in a high-temperature incinerator for bio-waste. So now, what are these incinerators? They are high-scale incinerators. So like for example, a lot of hospitals, they create a lot of sanitary waste that has to be incinerated, because in fact they might have harmful microorganisms in them which should not come in contact with the waste collector. So it is recommended that all the sanitary napkins and diapers, they should be incinerated in these high temperature incinerators that are centrally located in urban areas. Deep burial is also something that the government has suggested for rural setup, but it has mentioned that it is only for compostable pads. So now this is something that we need to be aware that deep burial is fine as long as the pads are compostable. And finally, government has said that if no other option is available for rural setup, pit burning is what is recommended by them, that we just have to burn these pads if there is no other option that is available. So this is what is recommended by the government, and they are working to convert these guidelines into policies, and a lot of work is happening on that end. So I just spoke about compostable pads, but there are many more terms that are used, and sometimes it can be a little bit misleading for consumers to understand what these terminologies mean. Let's go through a few of them. So degradable is the first one, right? What does degradable mean? Degradable means that the material it disintegrates into basic molecules like carbon dioxide, water, and biomass, and it happens in the presence of maybe air or sunlight or microorganisms. This is what a degradable product is. How is biodegradable different from degradable? Biodegradable means all the products that degrade in presence of microorganisms are called as biodegradable. But there is a very important catch in this term, is that it does not define in how many years does this product have to degrade. So that is where a lot of people can be misleading. Technically, it is also correct to say that polyethylene is biodegradable, because yes, in 700 or 1000 years, even polyethylene is going to degrade. So technically, we can also call them as biodegradable, right? But that is where it can play with the consumer's minds. So we have to be careful when any product has a label of biodegradable on them. We need to look at the proper certifications that this product has. Let's move on to the next one. There is something also called as oxo-biodegradable, which is slightly better than biodegradable. These oxo-biodegradable products, they have certain fillers or some chemicals added into the product, which will help to break down these products more quickly. At least it will break down this product into very small pieces, and then these small pieces will take some more time to kind of become carbon dioxide and water. So it accelerates just one stage of the degradation. That is what these oxo-biodegradable products do. So what is the most desirable one is a compostable one. And the main reason is that there is a time frame that is defined for a product to be called as compostable. Compostable means the product has to degrade within a certain time. And generally, it is kept between 3 to 6 months. Right. So I will talk a little bit more in detail about the compostable product in the next slide. Let's move to bioplastics and natural products. What do these products mean? Bioplastics is generally these products, they refer to how these products were made and not how these products are, what is going to happen when they are disposed. So that is a difference that we need to understand. Degradation is about when the product is disposed, what happens to it, while bioplastic and natural products talk about how they are made. Are they made from petroleum products, or do they come from trees, which can be, again, new trees can be planted and things like that. For example, you can have a bio-based polyethylene, which is not compostable. Bio-based, which is something that can be made up of cellulose or other fibers. They can also be worked on to create a polyethylene film, which is then just going to behave as good as a petroleum-based polyethylene. So how is it any better than a petroleum polyethylene? Again, we need to be careful when someone is saying that it's a bioplastic product. What does it actually mean? And is that actually also going to be good for the environment, which is what each and every one of us is looking out for. So we also have to be careful when someone says that's a bioplastic. We need to know which bioplastic it is that they're using. Is it a PLA or a PHA or PBS? These are some different variants which are bio-based plastics, but they are also compostable. And something like bio-polyethylene, bio-PET, these all are not compostable. Let's look at compostable. Compostable product means 90% by way needs to be composted. Uh, we can have a look at all the raw materials that are used in pads first. Now, uh, so the pad has one of the material is a release liner, which is generally used to cover the adhesive part, and it is removed while the user is going to use the pad. So silicone coated paper is generally used as release liner, and these are mostly compostable because paper as such is a compostable product, and silicone coating is a very small percentage of uh, coating that is done. So although silicone is not compostable, but by weight this product is almost entirely compostable. The next layer is the backsheet, which traditionally everyone uses a polyethylene backsheet to make the sanitary napkins. These can be substituted with PLA or PBAT materials. Although as of today they are slightly expensive materials, but as in when the production of these materials are going to increase, the unit economics of these are going to increase, the costs of these compostable variants will also be coming down. But as of today, we do have commercially available options for using a PLA or PBAT as the backsheet. Next, we will talk about wood pulp, uh, which is compostable as well. Okay. SAP. Now, SAP is a petroleum product. It is not toxic. It is not bad for the environment, but it is something that is not compostable. Now, bio-based SAP is something that is being explored by a lot of SAP making companies. After this, we come to top sheet, which is generally a perforated polyethylene or polypropylene. As of today, we have oxo biodegradable options available, which can make the disintegration process a little bit faster. There is also ongoing research to make a good quality and a cost-effective compostable top sheet. The issue with the compostable top sheet today is that they do not perform as well as a polyethylene top sheet. So this is why we are looking towards making them more quality and cost effective. Finally, there are adhesives that are also added in the product, and traditionally these adhesives are petroleum based and they do not disintegrate very soon, but there is research that is going on to make these also biodegradable. So that is the status of all of the raw materials that is used in a sanitary napkin. Now let's just look at a little bit about the standards for composting. Right, you see the globally accepted standards are very well respected. So EN 13432 is a compostable standard that is used in Europe, and ASTM 6400 is something that's used in USA. These are the most widely recognized certifications for composting. If you're finding that a brand has this kind of logo on their product, then it has been certified by these agencies and they have a certain standard. Now, what do these standards require? They require that these products do not have presence of heavy metals, which these products have to disintegrate into carbon dioxide and water and minerals 90% by weight within 6 months, which is a requirement to be as compostable. So 90% of this material has to pass through a 2 mm by 2 mm mesh. So you can imagine that the size of the particles have to be very small. Also, this composting should not spoil the quality of compost, and if this compost is used for irrigation, it should not create issues in germination. So that is also something that they look at while giving this sort of certificate. There are also certain challenges that comes when we're using compostable pads, and I'll just go through a few of them. Firstly, the industrially compostable material will not degrade when it is dumped in a landfill. it has to be taken to a compost site where at 60 degrees temperature it is maintained and there are microorganisms added. Then it converts to a compost. So it's not that we can suddenly start selling a compostable product and we have solved the environment problem. There's also going to be a process after that. These compostable products have to be collected and brought to a compost site. Also, one more thing is that compostable material cannot be mixed with other materials. So segregation is required. Both the recyclable and compostable material, they are not compatible with each other. So that becomes a very important point as well. Also, in landfills, if the compostable product is present, it can produce methane gas, which is again not very good for the environment. So whenever we want to use a compostable alternative for pads, we need to be aware that our job is not done by just providing these compostable pads. We also need to collect them and dispose them as per recommendations. Also, a lot of research is being done by big companies on whether should we use a compostable product or should we use a traditional polyethylene product and recycle them. The effort of segregation and collection is same for both of them. So there is a big debate whether which is going to be a better alternative. The plastic products, the polyethylene kind of pads, they can be collected and they can be processed to create maybe fuel, or also it can be recycled and cellulose or plastic can be extracted out of them and they can be used to make the pads again. So this makes it a circular economy and it is also a very good option that's there. Finally, I'll move to what we are doing at Saral. Like I said, there is a place for every type of entrepreneur. So we have different variants of machines that are available, and it depends a bit on the scale that you're trying to work upon. It also depends on which variant of pads that you are interested in. The first one is a manual type of machine which we recommend for an entrepreneur who wants to work at a village level. So now this machine can be used to create about 30,000 pads per month, and there are 6 to 8 women that are required in the production. It's a fairly easy to operate machine, so there is lesser maintenance that is required. So that way it makes it very desirable for entrepreneur who is looking to start an enterprise at a village level. After that, we have a semi-automatic machine, which is a slightly upgraded version of the manual machine. And with this machine, you can make about 80,000 pads per month. And we would recommend that if anyone is looking at a block level, this is something that would work well for them. After this, we have the Swatch 3.0, which is our most popular machine that a lot of entrepreneurs have chosen to go with, and they want to work at a district level, and you can make about 1.6 lakh pads per month. Also, there are other options available like maternity pad or panty liners that can be made from this machine. So it also gives more products in terms of what options the entrepreneur has to make from this machine. Also, we have a higher speed line which can make about 7 lakh pads per month, and this is recommended for someone who is looking to set up an enterprise and wants to market at a state level, or also they can also look at tendering, at supplying to government tenders. So this is something that is suitable for an entrepreneur who can look at a capacity of 7 lakh pads per month. There are also other products, and today's demand is 3-ply mask and N95 masks. So this machine with changes in dies, they can also produce 3-ply and N95 masks. Also, it's not only the machines that we sell, we provide a business in a box solution. So apart from the machine, we provide all the raw materials that are required for making these pads. We are well connected with all the suppliers, and in fact, the latest innovation that is upcoming from these suppliers, whether it is in the traditional pad or in our compostable pads, we are up to date with what the suppliers are currently able to offer. So we do a job of connecting with the suppliers. We provide after-sales maintenance and services, so that it's kind of our responsibility to ensure that your production is running all the time. And so we share a little bit of your headache, that production is something that we help you out with. While the main focus that the entrepreneur has to have is on creating awareness and distributing these pads. Also, for awareness content, we also tie up with many of the NGOs, and we provide with some really good content that is going to help in how you're going to create awareness for women and girls in a village. So we can help with creating awareness as well. And we also connect with some of the leads that we have. For anyone who's looking for pads, we just connect with the entrepreneur, that if we find anyone from your area who's in requirement of pads, we would just put them in touch with you. So there are also other things that we help with. I think that is all from my side. I hope it was very informative for you. If there are any questions, you can just ask me, maybe right